I I got tripped up on a technical interview question, right? One of those. It was a fairly simple question, but it started off. Can you print the numbers 1 to 10? Okay, easy enough. Without using a loop. And I'm like, without using a loop, of course, I need to use a loop. I could print. Um, but I spent a couple minutes. I'm like, well, this is how I do a while loop. And since they were asking about Java, I thought, well, maybe they're talking about mapping, like do strings map filter, etc. Right? Um, but or string. You get the idea, right? That that's actually using a loop behind the scenes. Don't tell anyone using Python that list comprehensions are actually looping. But anyway, he said, "Well, what about using recursion?" Right? He gave me a hint. As I was going through and saying, "Hey, I can't do this. What about using recursion?" I'm like, ah. And so I stumbled through that and eventually got it. Definitely took more time. I was trying to think in a functional paradigm more than necessary, like passing done, trying to pass the values back. And I eventually came up with a fairly sloppy, simple solution. And I'm going to work through that and some alternatives. So let's go ahead and we'll say goodbye to my big face, hello to my little face. And we're going to create a new project in IntelliJ. And here we go. Just call it recursion, right? And I still got to drag that on screen. Okay. All right, so we start off with a simple class, right? Scratch it. And he wanted me to do this in Notepad. I think he probably just wanted to see if I knew recursion, and I failed that miserably. I know recursion, but I didn't think of recursion as a solution, which was probably the test in that particular thing. So let's just run this really quickly to see if everything's working. I always start with the simplest possible thing. Okay, so create a loop that goes from 10. So I'm like, while I less than 10, print I, right? Make that 1. And and then, of course, this is always 2. So I run this, and we get an infinite loop. And I probably did something stupid like this in the interview. So now I can do while I plus plus is greater than 10. And that'll go through. And that's fine, right? There's a simple loop using 1 to 10. And we can actually change that to use a for loop, right? For int I equals 0, I less than 10, or less than or equal to 10, and I plus plus. Oops, forgot my bracket. And we're good there. Now, I probably did something like this too, and you may have done something similar. Right, you're greater than or less than, right? If I do I less than 10, we get 9. And the reason the while loop worked, because it was postfixed. So it says I plus plus is less than 10. So it's does I less than 10? It's 9. And let's step through this, right? Right, so here we've got I equals 1. That's our starting point. And then we step over this. And now I is 2, because after our condition is checked, then we're good. So actually, did this run through and did it not print 1? Okay, so maybe I just didn't see that it didn't print 1 there. So let's step over that. Yeah, so in this case, it gets to 10 because it does the check. I is 9. 9 is less than 10. Then it does I plus plus. Now I is 10 and it prints it. And now you see I is 11 when we get to the top again. And it's going to complete because that satisfies our condition. So both of those have defects. But he wanted me to not use a loop. And I'm like, well, are you talking about, you know, if I were to do like for each or, right? So I'm just going to why isn't stream? Doesn't stream work on strings? I'm pretty sure it does. Maybe it doesn't work on a literal. Yeah, I'm waiting for Messini. Java stream string. Oh, so you've got to do stream of my string. Right, so if I were to do list, I've got to define it. And I don't need a string anyway. We need to have a concrete type array list. Need to import that and import that. And now I can do l.map or l.foreach and l.map, right? And then we can create a function that does that, right? I for item, do whatever. But for a string, we need to do, right? So I would need to do stream.of. String, and then we can do map or whatever, right? So you could map over a list or whatever and accumulate values there to print. But I knew that was not the solution, and I didn't want to get into it. But I thought perhaps a little bit insulting to my interviewer's intelligence, thinking that using mapping over streams or something like that would have been the right solution. But then I let him talk, rarity for myself, rather than making an assumption and getting in an argument about something that I would have been wrong about anyway. He said, well, what about using recursion? I'm like, oh yeah, I can use recursion. So I'm going to create a function called loop, and I'm going to pass in my value, right? And I'm going to and of course, I realized after a little bit of work, oh yeah, that when I tried to actually run loop, that that it's going to fail. And then I was like, well, wow, I less than 10, no. All right, so we start off here and we get one iteration. And then with recursion, in recursion, a function is calling itself, or a sequence, right? It's recursive, right? So I can do this here, And if I run it now, what's the shortcut to run? And I get like an infinite loop error, right? Because it's just going to call itself forever. So what I need to do is now I can say if I is less than 10, call loop, and then I'm like, well, less than or equal to 10. And this is something, this probably looks very close to my original. And I'm like, aha, I showed you, and I get the infinite loop again. And why? Well, obviously, just like in my while loop, I forgot to increment my I. And so I add the little postfix plus plus on loop, and I run this, and I still get an infinite loop. And I'm like, what's going on here? And so bring up the debugger, and we'll put it right here on if I is less than or equal to 10. And I'm going to step through that. And we start off, I is 1, no surprise. We step over, and we can see we've already got our first loop running. And we print it again, and again, and again, and again. So what am I doing wrong here? And I scratch my head, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to pass like a done, right? So Boolean done, and I'm like, if I is less than 10, done equals true. And I pass loop and I and done. Or then I'm like, well, I need to do this as I greater than 10. Loop cannot be applied to given type. So I think maybe I need done to be equal false, and so do I need to put that outside of main? There. That's what we need done. And I'm like, same problem, right? 1, 1, 1 until we get to max recursion, which luckily Java checks for us. And then I'm like, I've got, and then I'm like, of course, right? I'm thinking in terms of my original while loop, and I'm postfixing. I need to prefix, because what it's doing here, it's saying call loop I comma done, and then plus plus, right? Execute this statement, and then post increment. I need to pre-increment. There's a good reason not to use pre-increment and post-increment. And so I run through this, and I'm like, what's going on here? Well, then I would also need to do, done is true here, but I'm not breaking, and so what do I do? I'm like, well, do I need to return done? And then I was like, well, now, right? And then I could say something like, I was going to do like a while true. So and the problem is I am using a loop again. Missing return statement. And of course, this isn't going to work either, because, well, our recursion is happening in here, not out here. And I was starting to sweat here. And I was like, oh, well, what if I actually pass my maximum value here? Actually, that came later, right? But what I need to do actually is I need to say, let me think about it for a second. um, and then I was like, oh, well, let's do this. If I is less than or equal to 10, then I plus plus, and only call loop if it's done. So this is looking okay to me, and I'm starting to get confident here. And I can remove done, and that's definitely cleaner. Oops, a lot of work here. And this looks okay. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Odd and even. And I'm like, oh, well, I've got double, right? I've got double here. So I'll just correct this and clean it up. And that looks nice and simple. And I get my infinite recursion. I'm like, oh yeah, prefix versus postfix again. And I decide at this point, you know what? That's a good reason not to prefix or postfix in here, right? So I'm going to do I plus plus loop. And then we're going to go boom. And we get up to 11. And I need to, I don't think this happened this time, but now I've got a working loop, and I had to go through my debugger to figure it out and step through. I think on when it was printing just the odds or the evens, whatever it was doing at that time. And he's like, okay, good, that works. And I'm like, man, this took me 10 minutes to go through, even though it's taken me more time to go through it today, and maybe a little bit more circuitous. And I woke up at, in dark 30 in the morning yesterday. I'm like, I need to go through this and look at this some more. And so I thought, well, this is sloppy, right? So I'm printing in my loop, and I'm checking with a hard-coded 10. What can I do? First thing I thought is I can pass in 10 as a value here, right? And so this was my first refactoring at 4:30 a.m., right? And I can do int max, right? And so that's a little bit better, because now my loop can work for any value. And we'll just make sure, yeah, it goes 1 to 10. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty good, right? And I was like, well, what's the next thing I can do, right? I don't want to print in my loop, because my loop is looping. Printing is not supposed to be a side effect of the loop. And so I'm like, well, I can move this out here. How can I do that? And I thought, I can use functional programming, right? And so I can create a consumer. And what would, it would just be the integer. And I think I just called this consume. And I need to import consumer. Now, this is a Java specific thing. A consumer is a lambda or an unnamed function, right? And then I can do like, I'll do n instead of I. And so, technically, right, this is in brackets. And this is in parentheses. I think if we do that right. But it can take the shorthand version. So I just wanted to show that this is what's happening, right? It's creating a unnamed function with parameter n. And in the body of this function, it's printing And now we can pass n as our parameter, or not n, we can pass consume as our parameter, and we can call this consumer, right? It's consuming an integer, that's n, or I is where it's actually come from, right? So, and then we can have our action. And so maybe we're printing our counter, maybe we're emitting it somewhere else, maybe we're calculating something with it, maybe we're calling a database or a network function. That's all in this consumer. And while well, let's run this and make sure it works first. It didn't work. Process finished with exit code. All right, now I need to debug what I did wrong here. Oh, I need to call consumer accept. Or action. I called it action. And let's see if that works. And so now we're going through and we're calling, or we're passing this consumer. So right now my loop function is generic, not generic in the sense of Java generics, but generic in the sense that it will loop up to any number, starting at any number, right? I can start it at 4, and I can go to 11. Always go up to 11, right? And now we can see I've got a mistake here, right? So what I want to do is less than or equal to. Wait. So I actually need to break this out. Oops. Did I do like a zoom thing here? What happened here? Oh, I need to iterate my I after that, right? And now we go 4 to 10, and we can see we need to move the I to the bottom, and nope, stop it, seagulls. Oh, back to less than or equal to, right? Yeah, so now we're going 4 to 11, whatever it is, right? And then I got to thinking, well, I don't want to pass this consumer, right? And I was like, well, what can I do? I can use a predicate, and what I want to do is I want to, and I'm gonna do really good. I'm gonna do up to, right? And I was like, I can make a function that creates my anonymous function. That's what I decided to do. Static predicate integer. I'm going to call this up to, right? Up to what number, do what, right? And then in here, I can just do something really simple, like return I is less than, less than or equal to max. And what this is doing is it's saying, hey, right, create an anonymous function that takes the parameter I, integer, and we know it's an integer because of the typing here. what's going on here? Oh, just never used. Okay. So anyway, so some nice, right? A nice clean code, and I can use multiple different things here, right? So now I can, I guess instead of using loop, I can say up to 10. Let's bring my consumer back just for ease. I guess I need up to no, I guess in up to I didn't. I'm looking over at my notes. So up to 10. Let me see how I did this. So loop, print, count, collect, consume. Oh, I made another function called static void counter. And let me just see. Right, and so then I took my index and my predicate and my consumer. Right, and I'm getting really weirdly functional here. So I'm using a predicate to determine my condition, right? So this can take any condition, and we're defining our condition here in up to. Fingers are on the wrong keys. And now in this function, I can say if not condition dot test I. So right, test is a method on predicate. Then return. So it's saying bail out if it's not if the test has not succeeded. Otherwise, we can do something with our I. So first we check something with our I, in this case whether it's up to 10, and then we accept it, and then we call our recursiveness. And then we can do here I plus 1. Instead of incrementing I, we can actually just, right, we can treat I as if it's immutable and increment whatever was passed in plus 1. That was another thing. I think actually Gemini or ChatGPT told me I could do that. Or maybe it was IntelliJ. And then condition and action. So now we can what did I do wrong here? Is it just here? Well, I'm running out of time, but now I can. I can do counter, and I can say I, and I don't even need to declare this. I can say I, comma, we'll say 3, comma 7, 3, and we can say up to 7, right? I think I had a version where we implement range, right? That can take 3 and 7 in the range and return those values. And then we can count. And so now we have something really, actually kind of bizarre that can loop through, and it can do 1 to 10 and print them out. We're defining what we do outside of our recursive function. We're actually defining how we test it outside that function. And of course, we're defining our initial value. So that's how we did it. I had one more method that I'm not going to go into here, which was to actually to have a list of integers that are count. And then what I did is I collected them. So this was my first take at optimizing it, which was instead of passing anything in, we could then did I call this increment? Something like that. And inside my function, right, it would still just be the recursive. Let's see if I can get to it. What I would do is I would do count.add I, and I'm going to need to initialize this, equals which is kind of bad form. I guess we could probably, no, we need to declare it outside of our main. Oh, this needs to be static too. And now I can increment, and then I can say in a loop or whatever, right? Anyway, I could print that, and that's a loop as well. But I could increment here, I could count add. And then at the end of this, right, I've got a collection of numbers, and I can print those out. But I've got to run, so I'll talk to you later.